Even if you're not going to use something like this in your own design system or components, I think it's like worth kind of understanding the problem, because it's a very, very like an underlying, like a very primitive problem with how we build layouts. The last best practice, this is I don't know. This is a good one. You should use Capsize. Yes or no?
So for those who don't know, Capsize is a library by my friend and colleague, Michael Taranto. And that library standardizes something that we've been working towards for quite a while in our work at Seek, which is, I mentioned it earlier in the podcast, trimming the white space on text nodes in your app. So that's above the capital letters and below the baseline of the text. The way Capsize does it is that, well, first of all, there's a website for it that lets you select a Google font or upload your own font as well. And it'll give you the font metrics from the font's own metadata. And then you plug that metadata into the JavaScript library, and it gives you back the CSS rules for, like, it's basically a hack of negative margins to remove the that space above and below the glyphs in the text. I would say this is by far like the most important thing to get right if you want to have like let's call them pixel perfect layouts, just working in the browser natively, like not having to work in a visual design tool to get it pixel perfect. Like, because what we found was like the secret of layouts is having full control over white space and saying that, you know, there's never any space on the screen unless I put it there. And, you know, components don't come with margins, right? Like if I drop this button on the screen, it doesn't have like 12 pixels of space below the button for no reason. Like, because then you'd be saying, well, that space is throwing off my layout. How do I get rid of that space? Text in a browser effectively has this problem out of the gate, because you can try it for yourself. If you drop a text node on the screen, right, and you were to say, like, where's the top of this piece of text, where's the bottom, it doesn't match up to its actual physical space in the DOM, in the document. Like, it has white space above that, like we're saying, above the capital letter and below the baseline of the text. And why that's a problem when in relation to layout components is, like, you talk about a stack component. So you've got your stack, and you've said, I want to have, you know, whatever it is, medium space between all my elements. And so you've got some form fields and a button or something like this, or maybe some paragraphs of text in there as well. The problem is that if your text nodes have space above and below them, because that's just the way text works in a browser natively, it means that all of the text nodes are going to have an extra bit of space on top of the stack space that you've provided. And so visually, your layout doesn't look balanced anymore. And there's really no way for you to, unless you use Capsize or something equivalent that takes that space out of your text nodes, there's no quick fix for that. Like and I think in a lot of ways, like, that's why we had to almost work in visual design tools to get it pixel perfect, because they didn't have these constraints of the underlying platform kind of doing the wrong thing. Like you could just draw a picture and make the white space perfect, and then a developer would just have to throw some hacks around to get it to look right. And you know, like, this thing might have a padding of 7 above it, and this one might have a padding of 12, but visually it looks balanced because that's the way the text worked. You know, Capsize gets rid of all of that and says, like, if you drop a text node on the screen and you put a button under it, let's say, and you haven't put any space in there yourself, like, the baseline of the text will be sitting, like, visually right on the button. Like, and if you say you want 1 pixel of space between the text and the button, it will be 1 pixel of visible space. So it's like I would say it's like the most important thing almost in a design system to get in there at the ground level, because if you don't have that, you'll be building on top of this mistake effectively of the platform. And it's not an easy thing to unwind. Like it took a bit of work for us to have to like deprecate the poor handling of white space on our text nodes.
Yeah. This is actually the reason why I currently, when I said that I have to use the box component a lot because of reasons, this is the reason. We've built our design system on top of Zendesk's Garden, which is a very nice design system. It has like very good decisions, and it gave us like a very good like foundation. But it doesn't have anything like Capsize. So every text node that you have adds additional spacing. So what happens is that, for example, if you happen to change the font size within a stack, the spacings don't no longer apply because another font size has a line height of 20, the another one has 24, and the font sizes are different, so the space around the text is different. And our spacing scale, it has been stolen directly from Tailwind. Props to them. And because it has these like quite, like you can have 2 pixel values up to, I think, at least to like maybe 12 pixels or maybe 16. It's not like a huge, like it's not pixel perfect, but you can make things good enough with the spacing scale, even though you may have 1 pixel of extra space. But you do have to do a lot of this sort of, okay, is it like in the design, like I see that it's like, it should be 12 pixels, and then you need to choose between 3 and a 2.5. This sort of small thing that you would need to do in any case with custom CSS. So I can do it with the primitives. If the text sizes are the same, stacks work really well. If I have components like, badges, they usually have a background color, no issues there. If I have components like lists of cards or, buttons or whatever, then anything that has kind of a border, it works well as long as you make sure that the internals of the component are good. But I can feel how it restrains me from, I could see that that's a stack, but it cannot be a stack because of this restriction. And we're going to have like a team-wide, or we have front-end developers in multiple teams. So my plan is that once I get this application that I'm currently working on with our design system done, we'll have a team-wide code review where everyone gets to kind of discuss stuff. And that's where I'm going to address that. Should we make our text component, like should we capsize it? So that's an interesting thing where we end up with that. But it's something that is not like natively built in. So you need to use something like Capsize makes it a lot easier. I've actually done it before Capsize, trying to go through the fonts, like measuring pixels, and that was fun to say the least. but Capsize is a really cool tool. So we'll add it to the show notes, and even if you're not going to use something like this in your own design system or components, I think it's like worth kind of understanding the problem, because it's a very, very like an underlying, like a very primitive problem with how we build layouts.